Okay, this works. Governor, your views obviously are not very popular within the Republican Party. Last year, after you made your disclosure about marijuana, the House International Relations Committee Chairman Ben Gilman did a 1-minute speech against you. Now, as long as a lot of people in your party do not like your marijuana views, are you going to remain in the Republican Party, or will you move on to a third party like, say, the Libertarian Party?
I happen to disagree. This is not a partisan issue. There are just as many Republicans that agree with me as disagree. Same when it comes to Democrats. I do not see this as a party issue. And in New Mexico, I will tell you that the chairman of the Republican Party in New Mexico, John Stossel, has been behind me foursquare on this from day one, and that goes for a lot of Republicans in the state of New Mexico. A lot disagree also, but again, I think it is nonpartisan, really. It's both sides. It's anybody that's in political office that's against talking about doing anything different than what we're currently doing.
Hi, Governor. You had some successes this year and some defeats on your legislation. What's your game plan next year for the remaining 2 years of your term legislatively?
Well, hopefully we revive these other pieces of legislation, and then we're open to new pieces. And one of the criticisms that we had in New Mexico is we came up with this package of bills right around January 1, and the session started January 17th. There was some
border, or are you turning a blind eye to legal maneuvers to stop drugs from entering this country? And also, how do you measure intoxication in terms that you would alcohol use? We have a 0.08 blood alcohol content level. That's the standard. How would you do it with marijuana?
Well, we'll talk. One of the problems today is when it comes to drug usage and drug testing. Drug testing does not measure impairment. It registers the existence of the substance. I don't know what those intoxication levels would be, but I assume that they could be established and would be established. But again, the problem today is that an individual may test positive for marijuana on the job. The individual is not intoxicated on marijuana. In fact, may have ingested it 3 weeks earlier. That's not correct. When it comes to alcohol, of course, that in fact does measure impairment. With regard to enforcing laws, I have an obligation to change the law. Should we turn a blind eye to the law? No, we shouldn't turn a blind eye to the law. So we're basically maintaining status quo with regard to arrest. There is a heightened awareness among New Mexico law enforcement, but we're not thwarting the DEA's effort. It is futile. Diane Kinderwater, my press secretary, where's Diane? She had a great idea for the border. She thought that we could have 2 lines at the border. One would say pound of lesser marijuana, pound or over illicit. 2 lines. I understand the impairment from marijuana, and I can speak from that experience. I'm not unknowledgeable about this, and although in retrospect I think that I probably wasted some time, in retrospect, not at the time, but in retrospect, although I recognized that it was criminal, I and all my friends, you know what, we never did harm when we smoked marijuana, and we never thought that it should be criminal. And I'm surprised, when you look back at the early 70s, I am really surprised that 30 years later, it's worse today than it has ever been. The government, when I was in high school, police officers said, if you smoke pot, we're going to catch you and lock you up. And I kind of laughed, because you really can't arrest 10 million people who at that time was believed to be the regular users of marijuana every day. I changed that. I believe that the government will get around to arresting everybody at some point. And it isn't a joke. It really isn't. I mean, this is the problem that we're faced with, and there are alternatives to this. I mean, this is the problem. We are going to try and arrest and incarcerate our way out of this.
Does this need to be done at the federal level, or can New Mexico do this on its own?
Well, New Mexico can pass laws and can choose to enforce the laws different than the federal government. Of course, there are federal laws on the books, and the federal government can choose to enforce on its own. They could always continue to do this. But New Mexico, any state, can in fact have their own initiatives.
From an enforcement standpoint?
Well, from an enforcement standpoint, New Mexico can make its own laws, and again, state police, local law enforcement would follow New Mexico law. Federal law, federal agents could come in and still enforce federal laws.
Governor,
That's my understanding.
Governor, you're an advocate of decriminalization. There are some in the pro-marijuana movement that believe that the commercial potential of actual legalization is what's going to get marijuana into the hands of responsible users. Is there a reason why you would oppose legalization?
No, I hope I've been clear on this. No, I support legalization. I think that decriminalization turns its back on half the problem. So I support legalization of marijuana.
One more question, and then I think it's time for us to elect the governor.
Governor, do you think that people who smoke marijuana need treatment?
Do I?
Yes.
No, back to my own use. Clearly, I did not need treatment. Now again, there would be many that think that is. No, I understand that the vast majority of people that smoke marijuana do so responsibly. That is my opinion.
Thank you. In recognition of the outstanding public leadership in the field of marijuana law reform, the Normal Board of Directors has created a new award in honor of Rufus King Sr., who many of us knew, and he was a great public advocate. And the first recipient is Governor Gary Johnson. Thank you, Governor.
Good evening. This is Patrick Moore, and welcome to Louisville Late Night. This evening, we're in Washington, D.C. for the National Normal Conference, Normal 2001. And today we're speaking with some very interesting people from Virginia who've done a most unusual achievement. Maybe I'll first introduce you and let them tell you what's going on. This is
Kelly Sigler.
And
I'm Grayson Sigler.
Okay, and how did you all happen to transport yourselves from Virginia to Washington, D.C.?
Well, we drove in a car, which once we got it here, we put hemp biodiesel in it.
Hemp biodiesel. Where did that come from?
It was co-sponsored by the Ohio Hemp Brew and Hemp Oil Canada. That was the oil, and then Apple Energy processed it into biodiesel for us.
And this is associated with Don Workshafter's Ohio Hemp Brew?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, great. And so the oil came from hemp that was grown where?
Mostly China.
In China?
Yeah.
I see. Okay, and did you have any mechanical dysfunction on the road? Or did the oil seem to work pretty well?
It works very well.
Really? You think you're going to market it and
We'll leave that to others. We just want to set the world distance record.
Oh, really?
I think we might have it already.